Here. Commissioner Bertani. Commissioner Glasgow. Here. Commissioner Martino. Here. Commissioner Bevan.
Here.
Commissioner Casera.
Here.
Commissioner Hyman.
Here. Could everyone please stand and rise for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If any residents would like to speak tonight, sign the book at the podium, please. We have one resident, Mr. Reynolds. Come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Well, my name is Paul Reynolds. It's 1978 Parsippany Road.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Our microphones aren't working right now, so
All right,
if you can just speak up and
I'm gonna have to
Thank
check.
you.
Paul Reynolds, 1978 Park Hill Road.
My name's Ray Judge.
My concerns tonight, I know that I was asked to be here by Mr. Glasgow, saying that there was going to be a report on the drainage situations going on Park Hill and that area, that basically there is no fault to the township. It's our fault that the road's flooding and that nothing is being done about it. I know as a resident who's lived there for the past 9 years now that over the past 4 or 5 years, we've been in here, my neighbor and I, quite a few times, talking about the same situation. And the last meeting that I was here for, we were said, well, once you finally get your bridge fixed, this situation will be under control and we can't. Well, we just spent thousands of dollars to get our bridge fixed. Within a couple of weeks after the bridge being fixed, we were flooded yet again. My children were not able to go to school that day because we were not able to get out. I left my home at 6 in the morning and waded through knee-deep water that was rushing at a clip that I literally had to just shuffle because I had to get to work. They were not able to get out. And I was not able to get back in when I got back from work that day. That was the 10th of September. It flooded again shortly after that. Every time it rains a little tiny bit now, we get flooded. And I know that Park Hill Road is falling into the creek. PennDOT is doing nothing about it. The DEP is doing nothing about coming up to dredge. I've been in touch with a number of people, and I'm hoping by the last time we were here, we were told we have to do something for these people. I still don't see anything being done. There's new construction that's happened, that just happened on Colt, I believe it was Colt, that they opened the bridge, which opened up more water flow, which means that much more water flow will be coming into that tiny little creek that is not ever made for that. There's water coming from the back of our hill, coming off of Valley View. I have pictures of it, I submitted those to Mr. Glasgow as well, of where the water is dumping out from Valley View into our backyards and just adding more water and more water. My basement flooded a few years, 2 years ago, and you know some of that was due to that situation. It's just been a nightmare for us over the past 5 years, especially, and just a catch basin. I mean, the property that's next to ours, there's the person who's there is. He hasn't really lived there for a few years. He comes in back and forth. He doesn't have any kind of power. I'm sure he'd be willing to sell you his piece of property to have a catch basin built in there. There's a catch basin behind Shopping Center. Every time it rains, it's bone dry. So I don't know where that water is supposed to be going, but it's not going into that catch basin. So I'm not sure exactly what the findings are that all the research has done, but showing that it's the problem of the homeowners because of the floodplain. The only floodplain part of that property is the very bottom little edge of my property that shows up as a floodplain. And it's at the edge of a creek. It has nothing to do with anything where the water's coming from. But I have a list of this many times that this water has flooded in the past. In 2017, maybe 10 times. Before that, my very first year there, it flooded. The second year I lived there once. After that, maybe once or twice a year. The past 10 times this year already, or more. And we fixed our bridge, which was supposedly the cause of all of the damage that was being done. We really just, we've been reaching out to you guys for years and years and years with not really a solution in sight or in hand.
I don't think I really need much softer. Thank you very much. But I don't know. I mean, the DEP.
I don't know. I mean, the DEP, I think, can dredge that out. PennDOT has been. I've been watching that road. They came out and put reflector posts. All of those reflector posts are now in the creek because the road is just deteriorating more and more. Lincoln Way, that road is falling down. As soon as you turn onto Park Hill Road, that's falling into the creek. Also, there has been a white residue coming from somewhere coming from not the Park Hill side of the creek, but coming in that leads into the Park Hill Creek. So, and I'm not sure what that white residue is. We've submitted pictures of that. When it rains, it seems to get even more. Right now, it's almost this white, the whole creek bed. So something's being dumped into it somewhere along the line too. But please, I mean, I don't know how else we can do that. I mean, we've been literally trapped. We came home from a dance recital one night, and we had to stay with friends because we could not get home to our house on June 10th when it rained so a little bit. We were flooded out. We could not come home that night. I don't know what else to do or what else to say, what other outreach that we can do for you guys. It's the same story. I mean, I feel like we're red in the face and you guys are tired of hearing our story, but something has to be, figured out, please, is all I can say. Because if it's an emergency. If there's an emergency, I mean, there was a news story done on it. I happened to be home the day when the news crew came and they interviewed me on TV. I sent that also to Mr. Blasco. And they tried to reach out to the township, and nobody would talk to them. So if nobody will talk to the news crews, it feels like the township's hiding from the problem. And we feel like our hands are tied, and I've been reaching out to everybody and not getting much of a response. And I know that one time a commissioner came out to the house and said, yes, we've been negligent. I know I've heard in this room right here that, yes, the township was negligent times when they were supposed to do things early on and they didn't do it. And now we're paying the price. We're suffering. And if anything were to happen, an emergency came up, I would be in trouble because there would be no way to get to my home. And they would, and anybody trying to get there would be putting themselves in danger as well. So, please, can we find something to help us? I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
No other citizens signing in to speak tonight. Response to citizens' input.
I believe we have one more, Mr. President.
No, it wasn't signed in. If you want to come in, yeah, if you want to come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
And I got some evidence for you. You can pass it around.
All right.
In the back.
All right, thanks.
Okay, my name's Ray Jedrzejewski. I live at 229 Bethel Road. 20 years ago when we moved in down there, our side of the street was lined with pine trees. They all started to fall onto your road, onto my property. We paid to have them all cut down, and that's when my problems began with the trailers, the trucks, and the cars using my yard as a turnaround. So, it was especially bad last week, Wednesday morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. My dog starts barking like a maniac. I peek out my bedroom window. 3.5 feet from my bedroom window is a 40-foot trailer, totally loaded, sank almost onto its tires in my yard. I've been complaining that I want a partial guide rail put down at the end of Maltz and Bethel so that these trailers cannot come around into my yard. Every summer, I buy at least 5, 6, 10 bags of topsoil and cover the ruts myself. But as you can see through those pictures, I'm not doing it no more. I'm 70 years old. I need either a sign, as Mr. Blanco said, telling trailers not to turn there so that the police can tag him, guys. If I wouldn't have woke up, that guy would have just left. He needed a wrecker to pull him out of there at 4 o'clock in the morning. And the police couldn't do anything. They took the report. I got the report. So far, nothing's being done by their insurance company. So I'd like something done, anything. But I got proof over there. And then when there was that wreck up there where that guy got killed, those double trailers were going down Maltz Lane. My daughter had to call the cops. The cops had to get them out of there. Double trailers trying to swing up Bethel Road. It's been going on for years. Thank you.
Thanks. It looks like that was the last citizen for tonight. Response to citizens' input. I believe we are discussing later on the Park Hill drainage issue. So if we want to, we could address that at that time if that's okay with you, sir. And then if Andy or you want to talk maybe about trying to get some signage or what we can do about other issues.
Mike, do you want to? I know you did some research. You and Andy want to address this?
Yeah. There's a couple different issues, but as far as that intersection, trucks can't make the turn. We had a truck turning template put on it the other day, and you can move a 30-foot truck through there, but nothing over that. So there's a pole on the inside too, so they can't make the turn. So it would make sense if you wanted to sign it no left turn trucks over 30 feet, because they won't be able to make the turn. Now, I mean, the flip of that is, I don't know how many trucks go down there. I don't know where they're heading to, large trucks. I mean, he says there's a number of them happening. I'm sure that it is happening, but we don't always try to sign every incident that could happen in a township, because trucks get lost all the time, and this is not really all that unusual, to be frank about it. But he's obviously had him in his front yard. I think the no left turn is something we certainly could do and enforce it if you want to do that. The other things that are, the guide rail is not. It's not how you use guide rail. That's not. Guide rail's more for protect the vehicles from hitting things than protect property. So you can't really use guide rail in that manner. The other thing is there's the no left turn issue out at Wallace and Route 30, but that appears that it looks like that's been part of the when that development happened. That was like sort of a condition of it because it was put in place then. So the options there are fairly convenient, it seems to us, using Maltz, or for vehicles using Carpenter Lane. So I don't know. That's another thing we could look at if you wanted to. But I guess internally, I think our recommendation is not really to make any changes there at this time. But anyway, that sort of captures that whole issue for you. But essentially, I think we could, if you agree, recommend to do the no left turn sign for trucks over 30 feet.
Mike, would that be a no right turn coming up as well when you're at the stop sign coming up Bethel Road from Lincoln Way? Would that make a no right turn, or would that just be a no left turn coming down?
I don't. Is that movement a problem? Is that right turn movement a problem?
No.
No, I think they probably could make that turn because of the way it's not a 90-degree intersection. So if you have more room to make the turn if you're coming that direction. Well, we could put a turning template on it too, but I think they can make that turn. It's the left that they can't make the turn.
Okay.
There's not enough room.
What about a weight restriction? Why do them trucks need to go down Maltz? They can go over and go down Lincoln Way, or?
Well, I don't know why they're going down there. I think Andy may have a comment on that, but it seems like they got lost, or they turned before they intended to turn, or for any number of reasons. I wouldn't think that it would be a normal route for them to take.
Yeah, what I'm thinking, if you put a weight restriction, that's going to avoid them turning like off at 30 or turning out at a shopping center there to go down that way.
Dwayne, the only thing I would say about that is you don't know looking at a truck whether it's loaded or not loaded and how much it weighs. It may be within the weight limits when it's empty, but not when it's loaded. The geometry is really the issue. That when you get a truck with multiple axles and a trailer, it can't make that bend without going off the road on one side or the other. And as Mike said, it is sharper than a 90-degree bend. You're actually kind of turning back on yourself. So I think the length is probably more critical. And
Bethel itself, would that pose any situation?
you would have the same geometry if you made a right.
So are we looking at a no right turn there? But that also takes you back to Route 30, so any trucks coming from the plaza, possibly Shop and Save, or the stores there might use it as their normal outlet. I don't know how they do their routes that way either, because that potentially throws them into the adjacent neighbor's property as well.
I'm not aware of that situation occurring. Anything could happen.
No, we looked at the other movement because that was the complaint, but I don't see how they could make that turn either. It's the same, like Andy said, same geometry, so.
What we do is we can take a look, put the turn templates on, and then come back with a recommendation on both directions.
Yeah, because they could still turn left. They could turn left and get onto Lincoln Way.
Correct.
And I don't know what they do, you know, this happens sometimes with truckers, so you gotta figure it out. You know,
I'm not aware of any signage in the shopping center, but maybe at the exit from the shopping center, there should be a sign directing truck traffic to Route 30.
Yeah.
That's something to look at.
By the Chinese restaurant there. And then Ray, perhaps after the meeting, if you're still around, you might be asked to ask Mr. Dice about some questions, if he'd be willing to offer you some suggestions on how to pursue with the insurance company trying to help you out.
Get his yard fixed, you enter an insurance company.
But that should be covered by the trucking company's insurance and not your home insurance.
You're right, Brian. That should be covered. I assume you've made the claim.
Yes,
And how many days has it been?
it's been a week.
Okay, well,
The
they don't like
lady-
that.
The lady from the trucking company has been very understanding and helpful, but she wants 2 estimates, which I am in the process of getting, plus the pictures for proof.
Okay, so it sounds like she's gonna follow up with, if she doesn't, then let us know.
Okay, I will, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it if you guys just want to give us a recommendation maybe next week, and then we'll try to get that area posted properly. Anything else for further board comments? Okay, moving on, work session discussion topics, Commander Silka.
Okay, a few items to discuss today. One is the 2019 budget adoption process. Just kind of want to, review where we are, where we're going, as we are on track to adopt the budget at the business meeting next week. The budget on November 1st was presented to the Board of Commissioners. On November 16th, we reviewed the budget and had our discussion at the special meeting. On the November 23rd meeting, a motion was approved to advertise the proposed budget for inspection. On November 28th, we advertised the 20-day notice of inspection of the proposed budget in the Tribune Review. On December 7th of 2018, we published the required public notice of intent to adopt the 2019 budget ordinance, which is required to be published no less than 10 days prior to the adoption of the budget. And at the same time, we also published the public notice to adopt the tax levy ordinance with all tax rates remaining the same. So from a publication standpoint, we are on track. At tonight's meeting, we could have the final discussion if you have anything on the proposed budget ordinance. If not, we are on track to adopt it on the December 19th meeting, to adopt the final budget, the tax levy ordinance, the wage and salary resolution, and the salary scale resolution. This would be the time to ask any final questions or go through on the 2019 budget.
Any board discussion on the budget?
No, I think we're okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys did a good job, and I think we discussed previously about the budget. Only one thing, I guess, moving forward, I would like to see is maybe some different areas of cost savings. I mean, since I've been on the board, our budgets have been pretty flatline, which is good. We haven't increased taxes, which is great. But we are going to come to a day that we won't be able to pave so many roads with trying to spend down some of the surplus. So we need to explore other ways to save money so we can keep up with the road paving projects that we currently have.
We'll make that a priority for next year. So.
Any other board comments?
Okay, the next one is a banking change for depository. As you know, the township currently is with S&T Bank as a depository of record, and from the year that I've been here, I'm just not happy with the service that we've received from their management, their business banking, and also the rates of return we're receiving on our investments from 0.01 to 0.25% on our investments. So what I've done is I circulated 3 RFPs to local banks within the township: PNC, Somerset Trust, and First National Bank. First National Bank and Somerset Trust each responded to the RFP. PNC did not. And in taking a look at the accounts, basically the services offered are pretty identical. However, Somerset Trust did come back with a little bit more robust interest rate and minimum balances required. Right now, we are required under S&T to keep a $951,000 compensated balance in our checking account to offset fees, but we still do have a $100 a month fee. First National Bank is proposing a $900,000 compensating balance in the checking account to offset fees, and then interest would be earned on anything above $900,000 in the checking account. Somerset Trust, which is the more robust offer, is only requiring $300,000 to be kept as a compensating balance and in the checking account, and also interest would be paid on the entire balance of the checking account, not just over the compensating balance. And also the Somerset Trust is offering us, for anything over $500,000 in money market accounts, 2.34% interest on annual percentage yield interest, which if we would average our $4.5 million balance, which would be a good average to use, we would make about almost $120,000 in interest compared to $12,000 interest we're making right now out of the accounts that are just sitting there dormant, our CMA account. All of the proposed interests are money market accounts. They're liquid accounts. They're not investment accounts. We still have the option to go and take a look at different investment options to us for our the balances that we keep. But what I'd like to recommend, and answer any questions, is that we would approve a resolution next month or next week to, as of January 1st, move our treasury to Somerset Trust Company. They do have 2 local offices in the township.
Any board discussion? Looks good. Thanks for the work.
Okay, I'll put that on the agenda. The next item is the a proposed subdivision and land development ordinance amendment. Mr. Blanco was instrumental in developing this. What this is going to change how we deem when an application for development is accepted. As of right now, we accept the applications basically at the Planning Commission window, and at that point, the 30-day review period starts working. What this amendment proposes, and what a lot of other jurisdictions do, is there'll be a time set to have the applications in to the Planning Department, then put on the agenda for the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will then review it and then officially accept the application, at which time then the review clock will, according to the Municipal Planning Code, will stop or start. So what this does is it allows us the time to make sure we have complete applications, and it's a little bit more fair to the applicant because they can then update their application without falling behind on the 30-day clock. In a sense, it's housekeeping. It's just changing the way we do it, and a lot of other jurisdictions do it that way to provide the planning department time to review applications.
That's good. Thanks.
Okay. The next one is the Elkasan Service Agreement Ordinance. This is truly a housekeeping ordinance for the township. There's agreement between WWMA and NHT with Elkasan. There was some controversy over service area and who was servicing certain sewage accounts. WWMA and NHTMA evaluated, litigated this, came to a conclusion. But since the township is the statutory authority in the municipality. We have to adopt the ordinance to allow them to amend the agreement to provide service to those areas. So this ordinance was written. It has no cost to us. All we're doing is, as the municipality, authorizing the amendments to this agreement. All right. Let me just jump one more time on my agenda before we get into some of the deeper discussions. One is AARP has had for many years their tax assistants, their senior tax assistants located at the townhouse. They are in the process of moving it. They're not going to have it this year because they've outgrown it. We've outgrown it. There's not adequate parking for, it really shuts down our operation. Their folks have some problems with parking and walking. So what they're going to do is they're moving it this year to the Norwood Community Resource Center. And it's going to be appointment only. The information is on our website. It's on our sign, and it's posted there. So I just want to update the board know that we're not going to have the seniors do their taxes here. It's going to be at the Norwood Community Resource Center, and it was a mutual agreement that all parties will be better served that way. Yeah, they're putting out. We'll make sure we get it out on a news. We'll do a news release also for them. The next item is the Park Hill Drive drainage report. What I'd ask is our township engineer, Andy Blanco, to kind of steer us through this. He did present a very comprehensive report to the board, and we can just kind of address some of the citizens' concerns and the board's concerns.
You have my report. Seems to me we've been through this more than a few times, but there's two issues at play here. The one is that Mr. Gergelis, or Gergerich, I believe I'm saying that right, his home is at the bottom of about a 16-acre watershed that includes a storm sewer from Valley View Drive. That storm sewer from Valley View Drive is maybe 2.5 acres of flow that would come through that. It's 2 inlets, 1 pipe. It's a 15-inch pipe. But even if that inlet wasn't there, even if that storm sewer wasn't there, that same area would drain. It just wouldn't have the benefit of storm sewers to get it out of the gutter line of the road. It would still come down that hill. So Valley View Drive and the homes on it were built long before there was any stormwater management requirements. We didn't have that in the township until 1993. But even if there had been stormwater management requirements, it's 2.5 acres out of 16. So there's an awful lot of water that flows down there, and the drainage way practically goes right to the back door of the home. So it really requires some grading on that property to get that, what I'm sure in wet weather is a flowing stream around the home so that it's not impacting the dwelling. The second issue, as you can see on the screen, is that all of Park Hill Road, and certainly the driveways that come into the homes along there, are all within the 100-year floodplain. That's not something we delineate, that's something the federal government delineates. I understand that a lot of money and time was spent this year replacing the driveway crossing, but even with the additional pipe, it's still about 20% of what PennDOT's bridge is on Park Hill Road in terms of capacity, and that's underwater in a 100-year storm. So I don't know what to say. It's a horrible situation for the residents because they're right. There's no way in and out of their homes by vehicle whatsoever when the driveway is underwater. The police department often closes Park Hill Road because it's underwater. I don't have a good answer. It's a bad situation. I don't disagree that storms have gotten a lot worse in the last 4 or 5 years. We see that in every part of the township that has drainage or flooding problems. I could do nothing else in my job than try and investigate and address these things. But if we take this on, it's the tip of the iceberg. We can't change where the 100-year floodplain lies. It's I think I had said in my report, it's about 20% of the township, 24% of the township drains through that waterway right there. That's a lot of water.
And when you say drain, it's not directed drainage, it's natural drainage into that area.
That's the watershed, sure.
Correct.
That
That's what
watershed goes all the way up to Route 30, all the way over to St. Agnes Church. It's huge.
I think just for clarification, there's no township, stormwater plan or anything that puts water into that area, that directs water, onto the state road, into the stream bed. So there's nothing the township did to direct the water there.
No, that's true. It's a natural drainage way. It continues all the way down through White Oak for sales, ends up in the Occoquan River at Little Boston.
Andy, is there any way to divert the water that the township is draining from Valley View out of its one pipe to not flow through their properties? I understand what you're saying. The flooding is still going to occur, in your professional opinion, based on the magnitude of water that's coming off the other 14 acres.
I'm sure if you were willing to dig deep enough, we could put that storm sewer into a different watershed. But when those people come to the meeting and say, hey, I'm getting more water than I used to get, why? I don't know what you tell them.
Has this creek bed ever been drained that we know, or not drained, but dredged at all? Is that a potential solution? I know it's not through us, but other agencies. Is that something that's been looked at or explored?
I wasn't here then, but John Shepard told me that somewhere up around Hickory and kind of across from Redstone Highlands, that we got in there one time to dredge the creek, and within hours DEP showed up and fined us mightily because we were in there without permits. Now, it's possible to get permits, but I would argue that dredging tends to be a very localized and short-term solution, because if you create a deeper channel at one point without making it deeper the whole way to the river, you've just created a sump, and next big storm, the sediment fills that sump in. There certainly are some problems out here with some fallen trees, and those trees will back sediment up behind them. I mentioned in my report that I think part of the problem also is that as soon as the stream comes underneath Park Hill Road, there's a gabion basket wall there. And it's very puzzling to me without knowing the history, but it would seem that PennDOT, when they redid the bridge, tried to change the channel of the stream and divert it around to parallel Park Hill Road. It's not a natural bend that it would come underneath that bridge and make almost a 90-degree bend to the right. Why they did that, I don't know, but it's fairly new. That's not something that's been there for 40, 50 years. That's something I believe they did when they replaced the bridge, which was late 1980s, I believe they had told me. That probably takes some of the velocity out of the flow and may present an opportunity for debris to fall out of the stream channel. But again, if the tree trunks were removed, the tree limbs that were removed that are there, I think it would help. I don't think it's going to solve the problem, and it's certainly not going to change where the floodplain is.
Now, how about with the new work that's occurring right on the corner of Lincoln Way and Colt? Is that going to help solve at least part of the issues for them, or is that going to maybe do anything whatsoever?
That culvert was put in because the Creative Adventures Learning Center there on the corner was actually getting water coming down their back steps into their basement every time there was a major storm. And we had replaced the stream crossings at Astro and Pinto Drives back in the mid-1990s, mid to late 1990s. And if my memory serves me right, I think they are 4 foot high by 6 foot wide box culverts. The pipe at Colt Drive was a 3 foot diameter round pipe. So it was horribly undersized for what was both upstream and downstream of that. It was a very localized bottleneck for the stream. It didn't take much for the stream to overtop that and flood Colt Drive. So that was brought in line more with the hydraulic capacity of the other structures up in that vicinity. Is that moving the problem downstream? Yes, it is, because now instead of the basement of Creative Adventures being a detention pond. The water's not going in there and it's continuing to move down channel. Is it going to make a significant difference down below? I think that's unlikely. I have to disagree about Norman Town Square. I've seen that pond full to practically the point of overflowing. And if you go out there and look after a major storm event, there's debris on top of that outlet structure. So it's filling up. Well, I've got some pictures I'd be happy to share with you.
Andy, what about the possibility of retention pond down there in that area? I mean, is there any place that would make sense to put something like that to hold the water?
Yes, there is an area across from Redstone Highlands and next to Wainwright that's in the woods. It would be a perfect place to put a detention pond because it's in the floodplain and it's never going to be able to be built. You know, homes can never be built there because they would flood. However, everyone I've spoken with at the county and at the state level tell me that they will not let us put a detention pond on a stream. In other words, you can't just put a dam up and back the natural stream up. It has to be off to the side somehow. We got very lucky in Lions Park in that we had a situation where when the stream got full, it overtopped its banks and ran down through the ball field, and we were able to build an embankment to hold that water back. I wish we had 10 more sites like that. That was such a unique situation, and it worked beautifully with very little work to hold that water. It's something maybe to look at off Wainwright, see if there's a way that we could somehow do something off stream that maybe when the stream flooded, it would overtop its banks and fill up an area there. I think the first thing we should do is talk to DEP and see if they would be agreeable to that, because that is considered a dam or a stream obstruction.
It's a possibility, that's all, you know.
But honestly, and I will say this too, there are some properties along Lincoln Way that run all the way back to that stream that physically you could do something back there to try and hold some water back. But again, that would be on the stream channel. You would be putting up some types of embankments to try and hold water back. That kind of backfired along McKee Road because the developer there, they put in dikes to try and keep the stream within its channels, which worked fine. But then I think it was that storm in 2009 that we had, the water from the yards couldn't get to the creek. So it backed up and flooded people's basements. So I wish there was a way we could take a giant straw and evaporate all this, but I don't have an answer.
Well, when you get rains like that, everybody's gonna get water, no matter where you live on a hill. I mean, I got water, I lived on a hill, you know. First time I got water, you know, since I've been there for 30 years. You know, that's just a natural thing. Some people, you know, are gonna get it, some not. But the major problem, you know, is with those folks down there. I mean, if we could help them collect all the water in one area, then release it, you know, slowly as it, you know, quits raining or whatever.
This year has been very, very bad. I believe I heard we are 1.5 inches from having the
second wettest
highest rainfall on record
something.
Since they've kept a history of it.
Andy, I have a question. Is this the same stream that follows Lincoln Way clear down to Oak Park Mall there?
Yes, yes.
Because along Oak Park Mall, they're building that stream up with riffraff and chicken wire. Is that a possibility for here?
I would guess what they're doing is to try and keep their parking lot from eroding away. Because if the water comes along and cuts at the edge of that stream bank and does enough of it, it'll undercut the parking lot and they'll lose. So I would guess that's probably what they're doing. I can take a look at that and try and find out. Maybe ask our counterparts in White Oak Borough.
Yeah, maybe they could
Is that a
continue.
borough project or is it being done by the shopping center owner? Did they have to get permits?
Yeah.
Something else to think about as a board here is Park Hill Drive flooding and the police department closing it. Does that present a liability for the township as well, that we need to look into some kind of automated device that's going to close that like they did on Washington Boulevard in Pittsburgh? I mean, I don't know how high that floods, but I mean, obviously we're concerned about the safety of their kids and their families there. anyone trying to use that road. I don't know what the flood range of that road is, or what the.
When it's Park Hill Road's a state road.
Okay, so that's not one of our.
It's not our responsibility.
Okay.
And I think if you look at the success they've had in Pittsburgh, it's not a.
Been troublesome.
It's not a case study we want to emulate.
Yeah, I mean, typically, you want to, you can come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please. Typically, if you want to sign in, and citizens input.
That. I wanted to hear his report. I can't interject on something that I don't know the content of. Joseph Gergich, Park Hill Road, 1976. You say that it's a 100-year floodplain. That's 100-year, not a 10-time-a-year. A 100-year floodplain is an expected zone to flood once every 100 years, not 10 times a year. Second of all, I watch that flood every single time it rains. It's not coming from the bridge up on Park Hill Road. It's coming from the two adjoining properties next to me. That creek is half the depth that it was when I moved into there. The pipeline coming from underneath Park Hill Road that goes into the creek, I have a picture on my phone. It's silted in. It's literally 10 inches deep. There's a big mound right coming out of that thing. It just ramps the water right up into my yard. I believe if you could get DEP, and I obtained a permit from them by myself with no professional people, they're very easy to deal with, to build my bridge. I believe if you did dredge that out, that it would greatly alleviate some of the problem. I understand there's not going to fix everything, that there's going to be your torrential rains. I can deal with that. I can't deal with every time it rains. Doesn't have to even rain hard. It can rain for 10 minutes, and 20 minutes later, my yard is underwater. As soon as it goes past my yard, it's back in the banks of the creek. It's wide enough down there, make it wide enough upstream. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thanks.
You are absolutely correct that we see 100-year storms a whole lot more frequently than once every 100 years. And in fact, if you look on the screen, FEMA changed their definition when they redefined the floodplains back in 2010, that they now call it a 1% probability of having a storm. There's a 1% probability every year of having a storm this big. But you're right, sometimes it happens twice in a year, sometimes it happens in 3 consecutive years. We do seem to see an awful lot more severe storms than we used to.
Andy, can we try what he said by getting a permit and see what we can do? I mean, if anything.
I don't know if that's the board's wishes. I think you're opening up a can of worms that we're going to have everybody with the stream in their yard wanting us to come and do that work for them. But that's your call if you want us to pursue that.
Or how about a retention pond coming down off the hills to catch the water?
Well, the idea of putting a detention pond at Wainwright is that is our water coming from our township roads, McKee, Roth, Harold. That's another issue.
Probably for a course of action here, it would probably be more prudent to take a look and see if we can come up with some type of detention facility or a detention pond somewhere along the way, rather than do individual dredging, which does open up a can of worms. And you know, it's even a question: is it a municipal responsibility?
Yeah. And when you get into the dredging, it's going to be a cyclical thing. You're going to be doing it every year or 2 years because that sediment's going to come. Like you said, if you dredge one part, you have to basically dredge the whole stream channel from top to bottom.
Right.
If not, you're going to get that sediment that's just going to come from the sections that you didn't dredge. Yeah, I mean, I guess like Mr. Silka said, I mean, if you want to maybe reach out, and not saying I appreciate your report and recommendations, but see maybe, you know, if we can get with the Conservation District and DEP to see if maybe they can have any ideas or recommendations that are done elsewhere throughout the state or locally that might be able to give us some type of recommendation to move forward. Because obviously if we do the localized thing, that's like you said, it's going to cause a problem somewhere else in the stream channel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item, I'd like to bring Chief Rizzo up to kind of update the board on a rebranding and of the police patches and car graphics.
follow-up to our discussion last month. So this is a patch that pretty much settled on.
Chief, can you either speak up or grab a microphone, please?
Okay, yeah, so
Thank
this is the patch that we had settled on. We had a couple variations last month. We incorporated the township's colors into it, the blues and the golds, which is obviously here and here for our branding. And this will be the actual, obviously the actual townhouse, which is in the patch. The other parts of it remain the same, but that's the one that the officers kind of decided on. We're still open for change. That's why we wanted to present it tonight. You can kind of get your guys' input, talk about it. We can even send it out via email, and you can take a look at it. Can you move to the next slide? Cars. The same thing with the cars. It's not a great representation because once we would pick a company that would actually do it, we would get the actual artwork on the car. But again, we gave them the colors of our marketing brand, and that blue here on the police would be the actual blue on our color scheme. The gold outline and the striping and around the police and around the patch and inside the patch on the car, again, our gold, the same as you guys requested last month for us to give to them. So again, not a great representation of it. It does show it a little bit better than it did last month, but I guarantee you that once we settle with a company that we're going to go with and we get the good artwork back, it will be the same colors that the township went with its branding. So again, we can send this out via email to you. You can take a look at it. I'm open for any suggestions. If you guys have any suggestions of things you want added, deleted. Obviously there'll be some stuff on the front and the back, and it'll all remain the very similar color scheme. And we'd like to, obviously by next week, move on this so we can start doing some work on the cars in January, February. So I'll see if I can email it out to you, and then we can talk next week if you guys have any changes at all. We definitely have time to do that. Do you have any questions now? No?
I mean, I like it, Patch, and I brought up even, last time about using the township color scheme. Right. Would there be any, I guess, like you said, I'm glad all the officers were involved and you guys did great work. And like you said, you reached out got some good quotes on, getting these things done at a very reasonable price. Even using the township's actual, new, what do you want to call it, label or emblem instead of the direction you guys went. I don't know. Andy, could you go back to the last slide, please? I mean, I like what you guys did with the townhouse, but even possibly using our new, North Huntington, I guess you want to call it logo there. Yeah.
Logo, yes.
We can try to incorporate that in. Let me talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, if the officers like this, I mean, I'm fine with that. When we did the whole branding thing, we were pretty strong on trying to actually put that brand and that logo out there as the township. And I don't know if that maybe actually be a better direction to go, to actually have the logo in the center to really brand the township and using that logo. I think that was our goal at that time. And I know, you guys are still the township, but you guys are kind of your own entity in itself too. So, but I do appreciate all the officers' work. But I'd like to maybe just to see what that would look like if we could try to put something like that together.
I can get that done probably tomorrow. We can get back with the artwork guy and have a second one drawn up. That's obviously with the mountain of the more modern look, that has a little bit more classic to the township. So it'll be good that you guys can look at both, and we'll give it to the guys and we can kind of come up with an opinion. We had actually a second variation of the patch, had a different flag on it, and we actually put it up downstairs, and guys kind of voted on it. And this is the one that pulled out in front. The other flag drew too much attention to itself from the rest of the patch. But I can get the other one drawn up and hopefully have something by next week.
All right, sounds great.
Get it out to you via email. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, the last item on my agenda is going to be Mike Turley giving a county comprehensive plan update.
We wanted to provide you an update on the county comprehensive plan that was released in October, the draft plan. It's titled Reimagining Westmoreland. You might recall in the spring we gave you an overview during the development of the county comprehensive plan. The plan itself is very comprehensive and very diverse. So for the sake of time, we're really going to focus on a few items that we think are most relevant to North Huntington Township. The plan itself is available on the county website that you can review if you want to delve into all the many, many details of it. By way of clarification of some of the terminology, the plan is organized in a way that has an overriding goal. It has a number of objectives, which are actually high-level type value statements. And under those are a series of strategies, which are more measurable type statements, looking at certain desired results. And then underneath that are a series of policies and actions that will support the strategies and objectives. And then you work your way down to various programs and projects that are very specific. And some of those will need to be developed over time. So we're mainly concerned right now with some of the objectives and some of the strategies that have been developed, and in some cases, a few of the actions that are being looked into. The overarching goal of this comprehensive plan is to enact strategies that attract, develop, and retain a diverse and stable workforce that will sustain a healthy economy. And that's a theme throughout the comprehensive plan, is economic development. Underneath that goal, there are 7 core objectives. 38 strategies are developed. There were 11 different focus groups that worked on the plan, 34 community workshops, and over 5,000 people were engaged. During the development of the plan, there was a number of opportunities that were identified, and some of these included building off some of the existing assets that were in place to improve those and expand their capability. There were also a number of important amenities in the county that were identified, including things like the school district, natural resources and aesthetics, rich culture and history, affordable housing, cost of living, and location, an item that we ourselves have promoted very much recently. Looking at the core objectives, and these haven't really changed since we presented them to you back in April. They were developed a little more, but the strategies were really developed a little bit more since then. But we're going to focus a little bit today, for the sake of time, on just a couple of these objectives: 1, 4, 6, and 7. During the development of the plan, there were also a number of concerns and challenges that were identified. One of these was the demographics, which became very important in the development of the plan. And the chart you're looking at the top are some of the components of population change. And the top line represents the death rate, which you can see exceeds the birth rate, which is the blue line underneath it. And it exceeds it by about anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 or so per year. This chart is from the years 2001 to 2015. The third line, the green line underneath it, is the net migration rate, which hovers around 0 or a slight increase. So the bottom line gives you the net change in population, which you see is typically about an $800 to a $2,000 person drop per year. This is a trend that's been going on in the larger region for decades, and it's something that's happened in Westmoreland, and it continues to happen too, is the steady loss of population. Also take a look at the chart at the bottom, which identifies some of the issues with the birth rate. These are for the years 1976 in blue and 2014 in green. And the one on the left shows you the number of mothers with one child. In 1976 was around 10% or so. And in 2014 it was well over 20%. And the other graph shows you the number of mothers with 4 children. In 1976 were 40%. And now it's less than 15%. So you have a very declining birth rate. So taking a look at some of the population issues that had to be planned for in the plan, there is some out-migration with some of the younger working class folks, even though the migration tends to look about even from year to year, neutral. Our North Huntington might be a little bit different here. I don't think that we're quite following the same characteristic as the rest of the county with regard to the migration, but it's still a little similar. But we do have the lower birth rate, and what has resulted in a very aging population, which is something that was focused on. So we have the same concerns that exist countywide. In the last census, the largest age cohort was between the years 50 and 54, represented 9% of the population. The U.S. average age in 2010 was 37, and in Westmoreland County it was 45, and that's projected to be as high as 51 in the year 2020. So what does that mean? It creates a number of challenges and concerns to plan for. It's viewed negatively for economic development and job creation. And, the most important factor historically in economic development is the quantity and quality of jobs. And that's still the case now. But there's a number of other factors that have increased in importance greatly. And at the top of that list is the labor force, specifically a skilled labor force for the digital age. And there's a number of concerns, some of which relate back to the demographics, but just general concerns about the available labor force to meet the digital age. A company that's looking to expand or needs certain skilled workers and can't find them is either going to move part of their operations, or they're going to automate. So this is something that's really important in the development of the plan. But the aging population also affects a number of other things, such as increased demand and cost for social services, and other things like healthcare, which is obviously very important now, but will even continue to be even more important in the future. And it can affect a number of other areas too, such as government financing. You may have less folks paying earned income tax, for example. So these are important things to consider when trying to outline a plan for the future. So taking a look at some of the strategies under the first core objective, again, we're just sort of highlighting some of them for you for the sake of time. There's a whole lot of detail to some of this, and we don't want to try to get into it all today. But concerning objective number one, which is aligning the workforce, education, employers, and entrepreneurship, taking a look at one of the strategies, again, just goes right back to the labor force, leveraging local talent for a highly skilled workforce. And some of the actions that are being looked at and developed will be promoting skilled labor, looking at incentives and opportunity, particularly for students to try to develop a better skilled labor pool. Also involve actions such as activities to coordinate and promote opportunities to expand some of the existing programs that are in place through other agencies. Workforce development comes to mind right away. And also an action around leveraging senior talent. When you have a lot of expertise that's going to leave the workforce, you want to look for ways to try to take advantage of that. So again, some of the specific programs and things that'll fall out of this will yet to be developed over the next few years, but looking at the strategy and action level, these are the things that are outlined in the plan. Another strategy is to look for ways to assist small businesses. We're really looking to be a county where small businesses can start and expand easily. So this involves a number of things, providing small business resources, a whole variety of things, looking at, again, expanding some of the existing programs, some new programs to make them more efficient and better at what they do, and also looking for opportunities to identify and to develop more resources for education for small businesses to assist them. On a similar theme, looking at entrepreneurialism, really, again, looking at prepare the resources to really try to make this easier and simpler for individuals and businesses. The county really wants to look at a way to assess its advantages, to continually monitor what's happening and see what the county's advantages are. And one of the important things really has to do with the available space. I mean, this is something that we've come across. It's been a problem. This really, really affects startup type businesses and businesses that want to expand, having available space, and it's a problem countywide. And this takes us right to another important strategy, having development-ready sites. This is another area that has held us back in some ways. And really, some of those actions focus around developing a specific policy to really develop pad-ready development sites. And this helps to expedite development and helps to remove some of the barriers to development. And then, of course, is to actually the large task of developing these sites, to identify and develop them, both large and small sites. Another objective we wanted to call to your attention was connecting with parks and nature, and this is very timely for us. I believe we've been on the front end of this, as well as some of the other things that are in the plan. As you know, we're very well along with the planning and even the design of some of the things that we'd like to do. But it's an important element in the county's comp plan too. Parks and recreation are an essential part of our community life. They're important quality of life functions, and they also serve a business attraction function too. So there is a great deal of parks and open space and recreational opportunities in the county. One of those strategies under that is to enhance the trail system, to have a more comprehensive, interconnected, multi-use trail system. And some of those actions obviously will be to initiate some new projects, as well as to better maintain some of the existing trails. And I call this up because some of our work is going to involve some trail development too. They're very popular, and again, we're aligning ourselves very well with what the counties would like to see and what they're proposing to do. Another strategy is really to make more parks more welcoming and accessible. And some of these actions or issues focus around ensuring that you have adequate facilities to monitor and to evaluate regularly what the facilities are and they're usable and what people want. Of course, this is something that we're very well along with right now with some of our master planning and design. Another core objective, which is, I think, very important, is term plugging into the new economy. And one of those strategies involve integrating new technologies to enhance planning efforts to integrate emerging technologies into the county. So this is in addition to things of just like trying to attract high technology businesses and help them to expand, but really to look at ways to incorporate emerging technologies. This will probably result in some work groups where businesses and local officials and governments and other organizations can get together and better understand emerging technologies and how it can help you. And we don't always fully understand the emerging technologies, and this is a way to sort of communicate and incorporate those between different entities. Another strategy involves investing in industry, focused around providing existing residents, industry, and businesses the access to technology and the skills for the digital age. Again, some of these actions are going to refer back to the building a workforce for the digital age, developing digital maker spaces and smart city hubs, something that's of interest to us, and we'll be anxious to see how that unfolds, as well as other general opportunities to expand and support industry. The last core objective that I wanted to call out to you really focuses around creating transportation choices. Now, I didn't include a slide on transit, but it's always an important item in transportation, and that's true in this case too. But I really wanted to call your attention more to this slide that really focuses on creating mobility plans. This is an emerging trend in planning where we focus a little bit less on moving vehicles and more on broader mobility and develop plans around that. And some of those actions involve managing and maintaining the infrastructure better. And this will certainly get into some technology issues. I can't help to think of like the things we've done with robotics to better inventory, use technology to better inventory and manage our infrastructure. It involves things like some of the significant technology upgrades that we've made to our signal system through some of those projects, and issues around planning for the future, for planning for future investment. And this is thinking in terms of what are the critical investments that we need to make to improve the transportation system and try to focus on those. The last strategy I wanted to point out to you is really focusing on freight. This has a lot of national issues to it, labor force and a whole host of concerns and issues. We're part of a group called Mobility 21 in Carnegie Mellon, and they actually had at a meeting we were at last month, they had a very large focus on this and how important it is. Of course, freight system helps to attract manufacturing focused industries and is very important. And some of these actions are really looking at ways to try to enhance freight and the movement of freight, as well as focusing on the infrastructure, as you could imagine. So taking a look at some of those freight truck routes shown on the map on the left, you'll see Route 30 and the Turnpike obviously are important freight routes. And I thought it was interesting, in North Huntington, the county has a large number of freight truck routes, but those are both in some stage of design to be improved. Certainly the Route 30 project, but also various aspects of the Turnpike too. So anyway, that's just sort of an overview for you for some of the elements of the comprehensive plan. A lot of the specific things will need to be developed. You got to see this like a roadmap for the future. It will take a number of years to roll all of this out. So the specific details will take some time to see where you can be successful and so forth. But with that, we just wanted to bring you an update, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, I have a question. Does Westmoreland County still have their Workforce Investment Board?
I believe so, as far as I know.
Okay, I was part of that initially, and I was on the Youth Council, and I'm not sure that the Youth Council is still functioning, but our task was to get the youth involved in job preparation and things like that. As a medical technologist, we had a kind of a youth fair out at Westmoreland Community College, and I brought in my culture plates and stuff like that. And the kids seemed really interested in that kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, I taught out there for a few years. But if the youth council is still in existence, that might be, you can take advantage of things that we already have going instead of creating a new committee to look at something else.
Well, I think that's what's going to happen. There's going to be a review of the existing programs, and with an eye towards trying to enhance and improve those. And you may look for programs or policies that might connect them to others and to better coordinate between them. But the plan certainly will look at the current organizations and the programs and see if they can be enhanced and updated.
That would be good, because you don't have to recreate the wheel that way.
That's right, and that was discussed
I would be happy to
extensively.
be a liaison with the youth council again. I had to give it up because my mission changed. I had to take care of my mother. So my mission kind of changed, and I kind of drifted away from that. But I would be happy to do something like that again.
Well, I think what's going to fall out of this is going to be a number of work groups and tasks and a whole lot of work to do. So I imagine that we are going to be asked to be part of some of those. I don't know what those will be right now. I mean, we may get to request those, but we'll keep that in mind to see what the county, I mean, it's the county's plan. It's not our plan specifically, but I think that we'll be part of some of this going forward.
If I can inject 2 cents again. I'm one of those people that had 3 children that were all educated here in Pennsylvania, 2 of which are out of the state. One's in Florida and one's in Colorado now. And it seems like we have a good educational opportunities for the people that reside here. And but we don't have the follow-up with the good jobs that they need to stay here.
That's the overriding theme in the plan. It's woven throughout all of the strategies and actions. In fact, the overarching goal identifies that. And I think this is a way to look at the current environment that we live in, the technology, what's right and what's wrong in Westmoreland, and to try to improve it and address those issues. That's why I wanted to present to you the issues of the population and the important challenges and what's been happening in the last few decades and recently too, because those were important things, I think, foundation work to understand before you focused in on what you needed to do. And I thought they did well, we were part of that, but I thought they did a good job. But, you know, a plan's a plan. And it's the actions and how you implement it is another issue. So we'll see what happens going forward.
Anything else, Mike, or any other board members have anything for Mike? Appreciate your efforts. Like Fran said, if anyone can be a help, just let us know and we'll be there. Nothing else from Mr. Turley. Plan and engineering topics, Mr. Blanco.
Okay, we had a very busy month this month with the Planning Commission, and there are 5 items on the agenda tonight for you to take a look at. There's the first one is the CCAC plan, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but this is an existing 1-acre lot on Pickford Street on the way up just past the entrance to Dartmoor Estates, and the owner would like to subdivide off the area that's shown in blue to create a new lot. I think this is the 3rd house on Pickford to do that in the last few years. Seems a lot of people saw an opportunity there to take larger lots and sell some off to make a little money. So the only limitation on this is that the sanitary sewer for the existing home is going to have to go back through the new lot, which will restrict building, and of course the new lot will need sewage planning approval from DEP. But the Planning Commission recommended approval of this. All the lots still meet minimum lot size. No questions? Okay, the next item is a boundary line revision on 2 lots between Cipra Lane, which is off of Wilshire, and Guffey Road. This is really just a land swap to make one lot larger. Currently the boundary line is here, and they want to move that back to give a little more property to the house that's on Cipra Lane. So it won't create any new lots, won't create any new dwellings. It's just a land swap. Questions on that? Next item is the Mance plan. This is a very deep lot that's located between Clay Pike and Hillview Drive. A number of the homes there have subdivided off the back side or the front side, depending on where the house faces, to create a second lot. They're proposing to create a new lot that would front on Clay Pike. This will have to have sewage planning. We'll also need to have a driveway permit to get onto Clay Pike, which is a state road. Pretty much in keeping with the other homes around it, most of which have already been subdivided. So the Planning Commission recommends approval of that with the conditions of the driveway permit and the sewage planning. Okay, the next item, yep, that shouldn't be in there, that's going to be next month. Next item is wholesale fireworks, and we do have representative of that here tonight. This is a site plan application for a retail fireworks store, which has become a business based on the new law that Pennsylvania passed this past year. And they're proposing to utilize the site of the former Carlton Motel to construct a 5,700 square foot store. It would have access into the site from Gregg Drive. Gregg Drive is at the bottom of the screen and then wraps around to the left side. Pennsylvania Avenue would be on the right side of the screen here, running north to south, up and down, and Route 30 would be on the far left side outside of the picture, but also running up and down. So you can see there's a single driveway entrance from Gregg Drive. There is parking on two sides of the building primarily, a little bit on the side facing Gregg Drive. Trucks would be able to come in. There's a loading dock at the back. They propose to use the adjoining lot on which there are 6 billboards, I believe, for parking to support this. And we've had some back and forth between their attorney and our solicitor. While we have traditionally held that a billboard may be the only use of a piece of property, our zoning ordinance doesn't specifically say that there can be only one principal use. So I think the attorneys have pretty much concluded that if it doesn't specifically say that, the courts are going to rule that it's in favor of the landowner, not in favor of the township. So that's something we may want to consider in the future if we want to keep handling that as we have in the past. Stormwater management is proposed underneath the parking lot. Sewage flows would be replacement flows for the existing or the former motel. Actually, the flows would be probably less. There's more than adequate parking. The traffic does not rise to the level that would require a traffic impact study, so that's not a problem. The building itself would be rectangular with a split face block foundation that comes out of the ground a few feet and a engineered metal type of siding on top of that. There's a good perspective view that shows what it would look like. The applicant is asking for 2 specific waivers. Those waivers are, they are requesting that they not be required to put perimeter landscaping around the building. Their concern being that if in the summertime the landscaping got dry, there was mulch that maybe during a period of no rain got very dry, somebody gets out of their car, tosses their cigarette butt into the mulch. Next thing you know, they've got mulch and shrubbery burning around the outside of the building, and you don't want that going on in a building full of fireworks. So they've asked for a waiver on that. They also would like a waiver on a rather odd provision of our stormwater management ordinance, which says that you may not infiltrate runoff from a parking lot. Most of the runoff is from the parking lot, some from the building as well. But that's actually what DEP now favors, is that by infiltrating it, you're not discharging oils and metals that come out of catalytic converters into a stream and open waters, but rather you're filtering them through the ground. So it's probably something when we get the county's county-wide stormwater management ordinance, which is to be any month now, I believe that will be revised. That's not going to be a prohibition. I think that was the big thing 15, 16 years ago when our ordinance was written. Now the thinking has swung around the other way on that. I don't know if I've missed anything, if you gentlemen want to add anything to that. But the Planning Commission recommends approval of that with the limitations or the waivers that we talked about. Any questions on that?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. If you aren't going to do the landscaping around the building, this building is going to look very stark. As a matter of fact, it reminds me of the handyman place, which we don't really like very well. So could they do a different design on the building to make it more attractive? I mean, right now it looks like a double wide.
I can't speak for them.
Yeah, they'll be here.
Yeah, if you want to come up to the podium just to state your name and who you're with.
I'm Brendan Lucas. I'm the attorney for Jake's Fireworks.
They're coming next week?
It's a steel
Yeah.
building, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a steel building?
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it to this meeting, but they'll be here next week. So, I mean, they can discuss, they have different designs for their buildings, so, yeah, if that's something that, I'm sure that's something they would consider.
Yeah, because I think it's easier to do it before you have it built than for us to complain about how it looks later.
Okay, so you might want to alert them to just be thinking about addressing the commissioner's remarks. Okay?
We'll let them know.
All right,
thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I agree with you on that, Fran, too. I believe having a metal building without any landscaping around it doesn't present the township in its best manner. And I know that the property it's going to be being placed on is not in its current best state, so anything would be an improvement, but I'd like to see something, whether it's even grass, vegetation, something to be there to dress it up a little bit.
One thing we are proposing, we changed from the original plan, not going to upgrade a whole lot, but we are going to leave a 5-foot river rock area between the sidewalk and the building, where originally we were proposing all concrete, so that'll help a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay, Andy, in that area, PennDOT's, or not PennDOT, Turnpike has bought some property and everything. In the future, is this gonna impact any of that or be impacted by that?
Dwayne, yeah, that's a very good question. There had been discussion, I'm going to say 2010, 2011, about maybe doing a slip ramp from the turnpike directly onto Pennsylvania Avenue. That ramp would go right smack through the middle of this building. That was discussed. The gentleman, and I'm going to draw a blank, Rhodes, I believe was his last name. He was president of Extrude Home. He was a very big proponent of this because he wanted traffic and trucks to easily be able to get to his building without it having to come off the turnpike, get onto 30, go back Rocky Road, make a right on Pennsylvania Avenue. That has not ever panned out. You are correct that the turnpike has bought about a dozen properties around the interchange there, probably both to accommodate the widening. In fact, they've bought the properties on the east side of Gregg Drive, between Gregg Drive and the turnpike. There were 2 or 3 homes there.
Yeah.
They bought them and torn them down. That I think is needed for the widening, but they've bought a number of properties, including the corner at Arona Road and Route 30, with the potential of maybe doing exit ramps from the turnpike if they indeed go to tollless, not tollless, but
Easy pass.
yeah, personless toll booths. Then they don't need to bring everything to one point. They can take ramps off anywhere they want, kind of like they have on 66 now, where you just have an overhead structure that can read your Easy Pass. So that gives them more opportunities without having to do all the crossings and so forth on 30. But we did contact them, Mike. I think you spoke with the county that was a proponent of that slip ramp, and we haven't seemed to have any interest. So
Yeah, that goes back a few years and nothing happened. But I did talk with the Turnpike's chief engineer a few months back about this. And they are buying all the properties there because they're looking at the interchange. So the reasons Andy said, he's absolutely right. Because of the system they're going to go to, it's an opportunity. You don't have to funnel traffic through one place. So again, you can build ramps anywhere, really. So if they want to redesign that interchange, it might be really costly to fix what's there. They may want to redo the interchange, but they haven't designed that yet. In fact, at the end of the call, he said, well, I'm going to call our engineer. We need to start working on this. So, but what he told me was that they were buying all those properties for that reason. They haven't designed the interchange, but they want to buy what's available. But that particular parcel, well, that's where we called him. What's the status of this slip ramp that Andy refers to, slip ramp to Pennsylvania Avenue? And he said those properties were, in his view, were just so expensive they couldn't really. It sounded a little strange with the turnpike, but they seemed so expensive they couldn't get those parcels. So he was surprised to hear that somebody else had an opportunity to buy those. I think they would be interested in buying them.
Mr. Raines paying business taxes. something to be investigated.
Yes.
Yeah, one other question. When this originally came up months ago, is that where it was to be? Or
They were
I thought
originally
it was
talking
about
about
to be
going
up
on Rhonda Court,
Walmart.
kind of across from the Hampton Inn. But that did not pan out. I don't know whether it was the size of the lot or logistics or what. Okay, the last item I have for you is Tuscan Hills Phases 3 and 4. This plan is on Barnes Lake Road. It will eventually be, I believe, 8 phases, 5 towards the front or 5 or 6 towards the front and 2 towards the back to Hontown Wendell Road. But the limitation on this plan going forward has been sewage planning, because the sewage from the piece of the plan that drains to Barnes Lake Road has to go through the Falcon Ridge pump station. That pump station is getting pretty close to being maxed out, and it's going to require a pretty extensive upgrade to handle the flow from the rest of this plan. So we approved it in July with the provision that they had to get sewage planning approval from DEP and NHTMA. There's only room for 25 lots through that pump station, and they were proposing 58 lots. They wanted to record the plan with a note that said the first 25 buyers get a sewer tap, and the remaining 33 buyers will have to wait until sewers are available, or capacity is available. DEP said, no, we can't do it that way. You can reconfigure the plan, but you can't. This is not a race to see who can buy the first 25 lots. If somebody buys a lot, they expect there to be sewage capacity. So what they have done is come in and reconfigured the split between phases 3 and 4. This is what was approved back in July. Phase 3 would be closest to Barnes Lake Road on the 2 cul-de-sac streets. Phase 4 would be towards the back of the plan, away from Barnes Lake Road. What they would like to do now is reconfigure it as shown on the screen so that phase 3 would have just 25 lots. The roads are in up to, here, I can do this. The roads are in up to this intersection, so they would build this road to accommodate phase 3. This would not come along till later on. This would not come along till later on. It doesn't change the infrastructure, it doesn't change the lot layout, it just reallocates which phase the lots get assigned to. And then that would permit them to get sewage planning. The other thing they'll need to do, which is already built into their approval, is that the traffic light at Barnes Lake Road and Hontown Wendell Road has to be up and running before they get their 63rd building permit. They were allowed to build 62 homes. That covered all of phase 1. Most of phase 2, I think there may be 2 or 3 homes shy of being able to build out phase 2. Phase 2 right now is about halfway either built or committed. So it's getting down to the wire, but that light is supposed to be operational towards the end of January. There was a delay in getting the poles made, but that should be up and running fairly soon. So if you're okay with it, what I'd like to do is give them the go-ahead to reallocate the lots, bring in Mylars that we can, like I said, it's the same plan, it's just which lots are in phase 3 and which are in phase 4.
Okay. Yep, looks good.
Okay, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Any further board comments?
Yes, sir.
Need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by state and aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Meeting adjourned at 8:31.